2020 is the 400th anniversary of the founding of Plymouth. I think that's a huge milestone. It's some great milestone in human history.
Christian historian Jerry Newcomb's documentary, The Pilgrims, looks at how those 51 pilgrims not only survived their first Massachusetts winter, but went on to influence their future nation.
This small group casts a very large shadow.
From the documentary.
Did you know that today 10% of the population of the United States are Mayflower descendants? 30 million people from 51.
The Pilgrims founded America for all intents and purposes.
In those days, England demanded all citizens belong to the Church of England and conform to its beliefs or face harsh punishment.
You will worship as they say you worship. And so to do this illegally meant you could be arrested.
Or even put to death. So the Pilgrims fled.
They just wanted to worship Jesus in the purity of the gospel, and the king wouldn't let them do that. He was ruling it over their conscience. And that's why they fled.
They'd come to believe in radical ideas they found in the Bible, like they had rights given by God, and that he wanted them to be free, to govern themselves from within.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible.
And after unexpected winds blew them off course away from any governing authority, they made a covenant between God and man for a new form of government.
The Pilgrims gave us the Mayflower Compact, which was an agreement for self-government under God, which was really the first step in the creation, ultimately, of the Declaration of Independence and of the U.S. Constitution.
It was a polarity change in world government. Instead of top-down, ruled by these kings that keep getting more and more powerful, it's bottom-up. It's the people themselves deciding what laws they're going to pass and agreeing to submit to them.
It made freedom the cornerstone of America, as shown by the words on the Liberty Bell.
It says, "Proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof."
Some students are wrongly taught the Pilgrims stole from the Indians and treated them horribly. The record shows the opposite was true.
The Pilgrims were kind to the Indians. They showed them love. They showed them compassion. They showed them the godly way to live.
They did take some buried corn in cold New England, but only because they were literally starving.
And they even said, when they later came into contact with the Native Americans, they said, "Find out whose corn that is so we may repay them."
They didn't steal land in Plymouth. It had been abandoned by the Indians.
There was a plague that occurred 3 years before the voyage of the Mayflower, and it wiped out about 95% of the Indians in that particular region.
They wouldn't come back on it because of the plague. The Pilgrims took land nobody wanted.
And they showed the Indians they'd treat them as equals.
There was even a situation where a Pilgrim killed an Indian. The Pilgrim was put on trial.
The Indians expected
a mock trial, go through the motions, get it over with, let them go. After all they did was kill an Indian.
And that's not what happened. They found the Pilgrim guilty, and he was hanged for murder.
Everybody was equal under the law. Now the Indians could trust the Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims showed future Americans a God-blessed cause was something worth suffering for, even dying for. The Mayflower's Captain Jones offered to rescue them from the first deadly winter they faced.
Half their men would have died. This is not what they signed up for at all. And Jones says, anybody who wants to come back to England with me, I will take them. Not one of them went.
The Pilgrims made living by the Bible and loving it a very American habit.
And their textbook was the Bible.
The Bible was the key book for the first 200 years.
The Founding Fathers brought America an enlightened revolution.
And above all, they quoted the Bible, 4 times more than they quoted any human author.
It gave them the go-ahead to throw off Britain's ungodly tyranny.
They recognize that there is a higher law, the law of God, and that God presides over the affairs of nations.
You are to obey the lawful authorities, but if the lawful authorities take too much authority unto themselves and they violate God's laws, then obedience to God means resistance to tyrants.
So the Pilgrims who'd fled England for their freedom laid the foundations that shaped America and eventually its freedom. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.